Still booting after all these years, the people stuck using ancient Windows computers. Fantastic. Look at that. You guys remember that? Remember that? The good old days. Know what I'm saying? The good old days. Some areas of the world that still use ancient Windows machines. In a gleaming hospital full of state-of-the-art machines was an error message from an operating system released almost a quarter of a century ago. The elevator was running Windows XP. Yeah, Ross. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So as Microsoft moves forward into the dawn of what is apparently the best it's ever been in the tech industry, others are stuck behind. So what are some of the examples that they come up with? Let's go down here. There's yada, yada, yada. Okay. Many ATMs still operate on legacy Windows systems, including Windows XP and even Windows NT, which launched in 1993, says Elvis, an ATM field technician based in Newark, New Jersey in the US. The challenge with upgrading these machines lies in the high costs associated with hardware compatibility, regulatory compliance, and the need to rewrite proprietary ATM software. Anybody tell me how we might have got into this situation, perhaps, and how you can come to me and make the argument that programming tools, hardware, etc. have never been better. Look at all the stuff we can accomplish today, but we can't move ATMs out of 1990. How do you square those two arguments? Because I don't see a squaring. I see very much an unfit set of blocks here. Microsoft ended official support for XP in 2014, but many ATMs still rely on it because they tend to have reliability, stability, and they're heavily integrated with banking infrastructure. Now, I know it's not the full story, but it's at least part of it, isn't it? Now, in 2024, Windows was at the center of a controversy across the German internet. It started with a job listing for Deutsche Bahn, the country's railway service. The role being recruited was an IT systems administrator who would maintain the driver's cab display system on high-speed and regional trains. The problem was the necessary qualifications. Applicants were expected to have expertise with Windows 3.11 and MS-DOS systems released 32 and 44 years ago, respectively. In certain parts of Germany, commuting depends on operating systems that are older than many passengers, and we're talking about last year. Last year. Imagine trying to get a job with these qualifications. We need you to know Windows 3.1 and MS-DOS. That's what we need you to know. Hop on in. If you know that, hop on in. Right? And then you hop on the commuter train, and that's what's operating the commuter train. You're putting your life in the hands of that. People who use old devices like woodworker Scott Carlson can get trapped using software and computers from the era when their machines were built. I can't even tell what he's running, to be quite honest with you. I don't even know exactly what he's running here. I'm not even sure if this is like the right picture that they intended to show. I don't know. So they said, a Deutsche Bahn spokesperson said, yeah, this is like par for the course. We have things that meet safety standards. We know that they're safe, so we continue to use them because it's like next to impossible to upgrade to new standards or whatever. Now, the trains in San Francisco's Muni Metro Light Railway, for example, won't start up in the morning until someone sticks a floppy disk into the computer that loads DOS software on the railway's automatic train control system. Last year, the San Francisco Municipal Transit Authority announced its plans to retire the system over the coming decade, but today, the floppy disks live on. In a brightly lit room in San Diego, California, you'll find two of the biggest printers you've ever seen. each hooked up to servers running Windows 2000, an operating system named for the year it was released. We call them boat anchors, or glorified paperweights. That's my term, says John Watts, who handles high-end printing and post-processing for fine art photographers. The printers are light jets, gigantic machines that use light rather than ink to print on large format photographic paper. Watts says the result is an image of unparalleled quality. Long out of production, the few remaining light jets rely on the Windows operating system that were around when these printers were sold. A while back, we looked into upgrading one of the computers to Windows Vista. No. By the time we added up the money it would take to buy new licenses for all the software, it was going to cost $50,000 to $60,000. I can't stand Windows machines, he says, but I'm stuck with them. It's a common predicament. Scott Carlson, a woodworker in Los Angeles, is steeped in the world of Microsoft thanks to CNC machines, robotic tools that cut or shape wood, and other materials based on computer instructions. Our workhorse machine runs on Windows XP because it's older. That thing is a tank. Glorified paperweight, Carlson says. But the same can't be said for the operating system. We actually had to send the computer back to get it completely rebuilt a few years ago because XP was getting more and more errors. He says it was practically a brick. For 4 years, psychiatrist Eric Zabriskie, I'm not saying that correctly, I apologize, would show up to his job at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and start the day waiting for a computer to boot up. I had to get to the clinic early because sometimes it would take 15 minutes just to log into the computer, Zabriskie says. Once you're in, you try to never log out. I'd hold on for dear life. It was excruciatingly slow. Most VA medical facilities manage health records using a suite of tools launched by the U.S. government in 1997 called the Computerized Patient Record System, but it works on top of an even older system called Vista, not to be confused with Windows Vista, which first debuted in 1985 and was originally built on the operating system MS-DOS. The VA is now in its fourth attempt to overhaul the system after a series of fits and starts that dates back almost 25 years. The current plan is to replace it with a health record system used by the U.S. Department of Defense by 2031. We remain steadfast to doing this. CPRS works, but at times using it was an overwhelmingly frustrating experience. Where modern health record systems have simple point-and-click interfaces, he would find himself typing out C:// and the full file path to pull up a document. CPRS is 100% text, and it's all capital letters. The thing looks like a word processor from the 90s. It's like learning how to use an old car. You have to memorize all these commands, and you're always running into errors. Something that should take a minute ends up taking half an hour because you forgot to type a dash somewhere. And then you have to do knowledge transfer. And they talk about the knowledge transfer. Have a look at that. Does anybody recognize this at all? So, old computers are a labor of love. In the U.S., in some cases. In the U.S., Dean Greigar, director of the Electronic Literature Lab at Washington State University, Vancouver, spends her days in a room full of vintage and fully functional computers dating back to 1977. As soon as people got their hands on computers, they started making art, Greigar says, and she's dedicated to preserving it. In the early days of computing, artists, writers, and programs were defining what art and storytelling would mean in the new digital world. Titles like Victory Garden or Michael Joyce's Afternoon, etc., and there's a few other ones, at video games, etc., like all of these things that we've talked about before, right? The lab maintains 61 computers to showcase the hundreds of electronic works and thousands of files in the collection, which she keeps in pristine condition. Now, I have it of good mind. I feel, because I live in the area, I feel like I should probably pay a visit to this place and record it all, or even live stream it perhaps, and just kind of go over some of it because I think it would be absolutely fantastic. So there's two things that I want to bring out in particular. I want to bring out the particular aspects of this article. So we had this quote, right? Zabriskie says, once you're in, you try to never log out. I'd hold on for dear life. It was excruciatingly slow. And I would argue that with the advent of all of these amazing things, including AI, that everybody so espouses in the tech industry, including programmers who tell me to take my meds because apparently I'm an old man yelling at a cloud because I'm claiming that the tech industry is actually in very bad shape. We don't know how to build anything anymore, or very few of us do, and we need more. We need to go back to our roots, and etc. etc. No, Spiro, you're crazy. Everything's great. I literally posted an enlightened programming video this morning, that went over the state of happiness for JavaScript developers. And let me tell you, JavaScript developers are not happy with the abstractions that they themselves are building to make themselves happy with. The entire industry is essentially delusional about their own happiness over the things that they're building. And what Zabriskie is saying here is actually indicative of what still happens to this day. Developers and programmers who use particular IDEs or who operate in particular paradigms still to this day, in some cases, are fearful of shutting those things down, because once you do, you have to start them back up again, and who knows what you're going to get the next time around. And it's not just programmers, it's consumers too. How many times have you, as a consumer of a mobile product, or let's say like a website or a piece of software that runs in your system, or if you have one of the new fancy smart TVs or whatever, how many of you have opened something up like that and you're afraid to shut it down? You're afraid to turn it off. Because if you do, you don't know what's going to happen. That happens now on stuff that's up to date. And then one more thing I wanted to bring out. Where did it go? Oh, yes. Here. Okay. This one. This is kind of why I want to go to this lab and either live stream it or record it and take some pictures and videos. I think it would go really well with the documentary I'm trying to create. And okay, but that's not really what I want to bring out. What happened to websites like this? You would go on a website like what you're seeing on screen right now. And yes, it was frustrating to use in some cases and perhaps ugly, and you had like the automatic banners, automatic music and all of that. But imagine if people were able to create experiences that were along these lines, but with today's technology and today's hardware and today's capabilities. Because when you opened up a site like that, there was character to it. People put stuff on their websites and structured their content and the images and the music they would play, the guest counters, the guest books, all of that stuff. There was character behind it. And you got a sense of who a person was by what they did with that website. It was personalized. It was something that was individual and unique. And if you remember the days of the web rings, when, or like Tumblr or whatever, when you could like click a button and you'd go to the next website in the ring, you weren't sure what you were going to get. Now, that of course has negatives, but there was character behind them. What happened? Everything is now homogenized. There's no more character. Everybody goes on a standard centralized place to post their blogs, for example. And you don't get character out of these things anymore. And imagine what you could do if you took the stuff that everybody espouses as, oh, tech is so great today and we can do all these great things, but everything looks the same, everything functions the same, everything's slow, everything eats up your RAM, everything takes up all your hard drive space, features suck, nobody can get basic features correct, etc., etc., etc. They sell your data now. You have to buy subscriptions. There's ads everywhere. You name it. All of this stuff. But imagine we could just remove all of that and we could get back to some mixture of this plus what we have today. That, to me, would be incredible. Yeah, the iMac G3. Yeah. Yeah. That I'm pretty sure that's what this is. Yeah. Let's see if we can get more. No, that's it. That's basically the picture. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I realize that looking back on this older stuff, it's rose-colored glasses, right? Because you tend the idea behind that saying is that you forget the blemishes of the past. There were absolutely blemishes on things that didn't work well in that time with this kind of hardware and these kinds of websites. But it doesn't have to be this way. And on some of the more chill streams where we've been building the game, I've pulled up older websites like this to make this point. That even today, these kinds of websites have character and appeal that you don't get anymore. Everything is homogenous. Yeah, the G3s, I remember that. I remember doing some of my first programming on these at school anyways. I think I had a Windows PC at home, but yeah.